All right, the USC Trojans take on Stanford, and that's going to be a 5 o'clock Eastern start time. USC is -6.5 with the total at 139. And if you want to see which one of these free picks on my YouTube channel that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on my website at brockpage.com. Now, we have packages starting at just $1.99. We're also 6-3 with a push in our last 10 board member tier package picks on that very same website. And the good news is board members get access to every single pick that I give out on that website all the way through the end of January. So if you were to sign up for my board member tier package here today, the math would actually work out to be just $2.38 a day. And at an average of 5 premium sports picks a day, you're looking at just around 48 cents a pick, all said and done. Now, we do currently have over 825 members who are signed up and active on my safe and secure website right now. And the link for my board member package is located in the description section below. Now, the undefeated Trojans have successfully covered the number in their last 2 straight. They also went 8-5 against the spread in their last 13. Certainly doing a good job cashing in tickets. And the Trojans are allowing only 59 points a game away from home. And they're limiting their competition to just 27% shooting from beyond the arc. These guys have been very good defensively. Now, USC also finds themselves in the top 3 in the country in defensive field goal percentage. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, Isaiah Mobley is averaging over 15 points a game, along with 9 boards and a couple assists. Now, Mobley is also drilling 44% of his three-pointers. He's been pretty dangerous from beyond the arc. Meanwhile, Chavez Goodwin is averaging over 13 points a night himself, along with 6 rebounds. Now, the Trojans are making nearly 50% of their shots from the field, and they're currently in the top 10 in the nation in offensive rebounding. A lot of good things happening at USC right now. Now, they're taking on a Stanford club who failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6 at home. Stanford's also really struggled shooting from the stripe. The Cardinal is making just 62% of their free throws on their home court. If I was the Trojans, I'd just keep putting these guys to the line. Now, defensively, Stanford's giving up 70 points a game. When it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of the Cardinals' last 3 ball games did fall under the posted number. Meanwhile, USC went 7-2 to the under in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward USC -6.5 in the under 139. Next ball game, some Big Ten action. I'm talking about Rutgers taking on Penn State, and that's going to be a 6:30 Eastern tip-off. Now, Penn State is -2.5 at home with the total at 132. The Lions have successfully covered the point spread in their last 3 straight. And they also went 6-3 against the spread in their last 9, certainly doing a good job cashing tickets for their backers here recently. Now, the Nittany Lions are holding their opponents to just 41% shooting from the field at the Bryce Jordan Center. Meanwhile, offensively, Seth Lundy is scoring 14.5 points a night along with 6 boards. Meanwhile, Sam Sessoms is drilling nearly 42% of his three-pointers. And Sam's also scoring almost a dozen a game. Now, they're taking on a Rutgers team who's winless on the road this season. And they're allowing over 80 points a game when they travel. Meanwhile, offensively, the Scarlet Knights are scoring only 66 points per contest away from home as well. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Rutgers is 4-0 to the over when traveling this season, 10-4 to the over in their last 14 ball games at any location. Meanwhile, the Nittany Lions saw 5 out of their last 6 get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Penn State -2.5 in the over 132. Next ball game, it is going to be DePaul versus Marquette. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Marquette's -6.5 with the total at 146. But despite being favored in this one, the Marquette Golden Eagles have lost 5 out of their last 8 ball games. And they're successfully covering the point spread in just 33% of their home games. Now, the Golden Eagles have been very little threat shooting from beyond the arc this season. They're currently making only 29% of their three-pointers on their home court. They're also taking on a DePaul team who went 6-4 against the spread in their last 10 outings, despite their current skid. Now, DePaul is also scoring 77 points a game, and they rank in the top 15 in the country in offensive rebounding on the road. These guys certainly have not struggled on the offensive end of the court. And of course, when you're talking about DePaul, you got to mention Javon Freeman Liberty, who's grabbing nearly 8 rebounds a game for the Blue Demons. He's also the team's leading scorer with over 21.5 points a game. Meanwhile, David Jones is scoring over 15 points a night himself, along with 7 boards and a couple assists. Now, when it comes to the defensive play of the Blue Demons, well, DePaul's limiting their competition to just 29% shooting from three-land on the road. So a lot of really good stuff happening here with DePaul. Now, when it comes to the total in this ball game here, 4 out of DePaul's last 6 ball games fell under the posted number. They're officially 3-1 of the under in their last 4 on the road as well. Meanwhile, Marquette saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with the Blue Demons fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward DePaul plus 6.5 and the under 146. Next matchup, it is going to be Kentucky versus Vanderbilt, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The Kentucky Wildcats are minus 8.5 with the total at 145. Now, the Wildcats have won 8 out of their last 10 ball games, and they've done an exceptional job scoring with the basketball. Having said that, though, tell you what, for laying nearly double digits in this one, the Wildcats have certainly struggled covering the point spread here recently. As a matter of fact, Kentucky failed to cover in 5 out of their last 9 ball games, and they currently find themselves just 1-3 against the spread in their last 4 contests away from home. I get it, a lot of good stuff happening with Kentucky, but when it comes to the sports betting game, it's all about covering the number. And the Wildcats really have fallen short in that particular aspect of gambling. Now, Kentucky's scoring only 64 points per contest when they travel this year, and they're making just 27% of their three-pointers in that very same category. They're taking on a Vandy team who won 4 out of their last 5 themselves, and they're playing exceptional defense on their home court. Now, the Commodores are allowing only 61 points a game at Memorial Gym, and they're limiting their competition to just 39% shooting from the field. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Scottie Pippen Jr. is averaging over 18 points a game, along with 3 rebounds and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Jordan Wright is scoring nearly 13 points a game himself, along with 5 rebounds. Vanderbilt, they got that Pippen-Jordan combo there. If you're into semantics. But anyway, Vanderbilt, they successfully covered the point spread in 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Kentucky. When it comes to the total in this one, the Commodores saw contests recently with Hawaii, Austin Peay, and the Pitt Panthers fall under the posted number. Meanwhile, Kentucky went 60% to the under in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Vanderbilt plus 8.5. And the under 145. Next ball game, it is going to be Pitt versus Syracuse, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Now, Syracuse is minus 10.5 with the total at 140. Before a team being favored by double digits in this one, Syracuse really hasn't played all that well recently. They are currently on a 3-game losing streak, and they also lost 5 out of their last 7. And although these guys have been pretty good shooting the basketball, they've really struggled on the defensive end of the court. The Orange allows 77 points a game in the Carrier Dome, and they're amongst the worst in the ACC in defensive rebounding at home. A lot of problems here defensively. These guys can outscore you, but it's tough because it's as if, nobody's playing defense for them. But anyway, they're taking on a Pitt team who's done a real nice job covering the point spread here lately themselves. They're 7-2 against the spread in their last 9 outings. And they're a perfect 4-0 against the spread on the road this year. John Hughley is scoring over 15.5 points a game, along with 8 rebounds. Meanwhile, Jamarius Burton is scoring over a dozen points a night himself, along with 3 boards and 91% shooting from the stripe. Now, when it comes to defensive play, the Panthers allow only 64 points a game, and they're currently in the top 10 in the country in defensive rebounding on the road. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, oddly enough, Pitt saw their last 4 straight all get over the posted number. The Panthers also went 70% to the over in their last 10. Meanwhile, Syracuse saw 5 out of their last 7 contests at the Carrier Dome get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Pitt Panthers plus 10.5 in the over 140. Next matchup, it is going to be St. Louis versus Dayton, 7 o'clock East. The Dayton Flyers are -3 with the total at 140.5. Now, the Flyers have had a really good stretch of games over the past month or so. They're 7-3 straight up in their last 10. And they also have a winning record at home. So some pretty good things happening with this Dayton program. Having said all that, though, Dayton did fail to cover in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. And they're covering in only 33% of their home games this year. So although they're winning their contests at home, they're not cashing tickets. They're not covering the point spread. Now, the Flyers have struggled offensively in front of their home fans. They're scoring just 68 points a game at the Dayton Arena, and they're shooting just 29% from downtown there. Now, they're taking on a St. Louis club who's giving up only 68 points per contest, and they're limiting their competition to just 30% shooting from 3 land. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, offensively, Gibson Jimerson, he's scoring over 16 points a game, and he's making nearly 90% of his free throws. Meanwhile, Yuri Collins is scoring almost a dozen a game himself, and he's making nearly 40% of his three-pointers. The Billikens also got the W in 7 out of their last 10 ball games, and they're averaging 80 points a game on the road. Now, total-wise, St. Louis went 4-0 to the over in their contests away from home. They also went 6-3 to the over in their last 9 outings at any location. Meanwhile, Dayton, on the other side of things, they went 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with St. Louis. I'm going to lean toward the St. Louis Billikens +3 and the over 140.5. All right, next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Texas Tech versus Baylor, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time. The Baylor Bears are -12 with the total at 135.5. Now, the undefeated Bears are covering in 67% of their home games this season, and they're scoring over 85 points a night at the Farrell Center. James Akinjo is scoring over 14 points a game, along with 2 boards and 6 assists. Now, the guard is also making nearly 42% of his 3 balls. He's been very good shooting from 3 land this year. And speaking of 3-pointers, LJ Cryer, he's drilling 47% of his shots from beyond the arc, 13 points a game for LJ. Now, the Bears are making 50% of their field goals at home, and they actually rank in the top 15 in the nation in offensive field goal percentage. Now, they're taking on a Texas Tech team who may have to go to work here tonight without McCullough and Shannon. Both are listed as questionable for tonight's action. These are this team's top scorers. Meanwhile, Ogbo and Calhoun, they're also listed as questionable to play here tonight due to the virus. And as good as these guys have been defensively, the Red Raiders are actually scoring just 56 points a game away from their home court. And they're making only 36% of their field goals in that very same category. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Texas Tech went 6-1 to the under in their last 7 outings. Unders against the likes of Iowa State, Gonzaga, and Tennessee. Meanwhile, Baylor saw contests recently against Villanova and Michigan State fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Baylor -12 and the under 135.5. All right, next ball game I have for you. We're going to stick with the Big 12 here. I'm talking about Iowa State versus Kansas, and that's going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Now, the Kansas Jayhawks are minus 12.5 with the total at 140. Now, the Jayhawks, they have gotten the W in 8 out of their last 9 ball games, and they are currently undefeated on their home court, doing a really good job getting the W in front of their home fans. Having said all that, though, the Jayhawks are coming fresh off a loss to Texas Tech, where they were held to just 67 points. That was their most recent ball game. So once again, they're coming fresh off a loss, an in-conference loss. And Kansas also failed to cover the point spread in 3 out of their last 5 ball games. They're struggling to get rebounds offensively at home. They're taking on an Iowa State team who won 13 out of their last 15 ball games. The Cyclones also successfully covered in 3 out of their last 4 away from home. And they currently find themselves in the top 10 in the nation in guarding the 3-ball. The Cyclones allow their opponents to make only 26% of their 3-pointers against them. And of course, as good as they've been defensively, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Iowa State's led by Isaiah Brockington, who's averaging 17 points a game, along with 8 rebounds and 41% shooting from 3-land. Meanwhile, Tyrese Hunter is scoring double-digit points a night himself, along with 3 boards and 4 assists. Now, the Cyclones are currently limiting their competition to just 58 points a game. And when it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of ISU's last 4 ball games did get over the total. Meanwhile, Kansas went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Iowa State plus 12.5 and the over 140. Next matchup, it is going to be some ACC action. I'm talking about Miami versus Florida State, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Florida State is minus 6.5, totals 148. The Seminoles got the W in 3 out of their last 4 ball games, 5-1 straight up at the Tucker Center. Now, the Noles are averaging over 80 points a night in front of their home fans. And they're led by Caleb Mills, who scores over 13 points a game, along with 2 boards and a couple assists. And when it comes to shooting the 3-ball, it's actually Malik Osborne who's drilling 42% of his 3-pointers, and he's averaging nearly a dozen points a game. Now, defensively, the Noles allow only 66 points per contest at home, and they're limiting their competition to just 38% shooting from the field there. Now, Florida State's taking on a Miami squad who failed to cover in 4 out of their last 7, despite their current winning streak. Now, the Canes have struggled defensively this season, allowing 74 points a game, and they're also ranking in the bottom half of the ACC in guarding the 3-ball themselves. Now, we're looking at a Miami Hurricane team here who's letting their opponents make almost 40% of their 3-pointers against them when they travel. So if you're looking to fire a wager on this game, certainly keep those factors in mind. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of Miami's last 6 ball games did get over the posted number. Meanwhile, Florida State went 6-3 to the over in their last 9 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Florida State Seminoles minus 6.5 in the over 148. All right, next ball game, little SEC action. I'm talking about Ole Miss versus Texas A&M. And that's going to be an 8:30 Eastern tip-off. Now, Texas A&M is minus 4.5 at home with the total at 136. Now, the Aggies have done a poor job of covering the point spread here recently. They're just 2-4 against the spread in their last 6 ball games. And they failed to cover in 5 out of their last 8 at home. Having said that, though, the Aggies are on a 6-game winning streak. And they're also averaging 81 points a night at the Reed Arena. Quentin Rampage Jackson is scoring 13.5 points a game, along with 3 boards and 40% shooting from 3-land. Meanwhile, Marcus Williams is averaging double-digit points a game himself, along with 2 boards and 3 assists. Now, the Aggies are currently in the top 25 in the nation in shooting the 3-ball. These guys have certainly done a nice job shooting from downtown. They're taking on an Ole Miss team who lost 2 out of their last 3, and that includes a loss to Samford with an M. Not Stanford, Samford. Samford with an M. Now, the Rebels have also failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Texas A&M, so if you're into historical trends, certainly think about that one. And they're also shooting just 33% from three-land this year. I wouldn't quite say they're built for a track meet. Now, total-wise, 3 out of the Rebels' last 4 ball games did get over the posted number. Meanwhile, the Aggies, on the other side of things, they saw their last 8 straight qualifying ball games all get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Texas A&M minus 4.5 in the over 136. All right, next ball game, it is going to be Oklahoma versus Texas, and that is an 8:30 p.m. Eastern start time. The Texas Longhorns are minus 6.5 at home with the total at 128. But despite playing arguably the best defensive basketball in the entire country this year, we are looking at a Texas team who gets rather dominated under the boards offensively, especially at home. The Longhorns are also coming fresh off a 13-point loss to Oklahoma State, where they were held to just 51 points. Now, Texas failed to cover the point spread in 5 out of their last 8 ball games, with failures to cover coming against the likes of Alabama State and Arkansas Pine Bluff during that stretch. They're taking on a Sooner club who won 7 out of their last 9 themselves, and they also successfully covered the point spread in 67% of those contests. Now, the Sooners are currently amongst the best defensive rebounding teams in the nation. As a matter of fact, these guys are currently in the top 3 in defensive boards on the road. And when it comes to offensive performance, Tanner Groves is averaging over 14 points a game, along with 6 rebounds and 40% shooting from three-land. Meanwhile, teammate Umoja Gibson, he's making nearly 40% of his three-pointers himself. He's also averaging 13 points a game. That's 13 points a night here for Gibson. The Sooners are scoring 76 points a game when they travel, and they're currently leading the entire country in shooting from the field on the road. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Oklahoma saw unders recently against the likes of Alcorn State, Texas Arlington, and UCF. Meanwhile, Texas, on the other side of things, they went 6-2 to the under in their last 8. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Oklahoma plus 6.5 and the under 128. All right, next ball game, SEC action, Auburn versus Alabama, 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Alabama's minus 9 with the total at 156. And as good as the Crimson Tide has been at home, they've actually been really bad against the number here recently. Bama failed to cover in 6 out of their last 7 ball games, and they also have themselves a losing record against the spread at the Coleman Coliseum. The Crimson Tide's allowing 74 points per game defensively, and they're amongst the worst in the SEC in defensive rebounding. They're taking on an Auburn club who's on an 11-game winning streak themselves, and they've also gotten the W in 6 out of their last 7 away from home. Auburn scoring over 82 points a game on the road, and they also find themselves in the top 5 in the nation in road scoring. Jabari Smith, he's averaging 15.5 points a game, along with 6 boards and a couple assists. Smith is also draining nearly 46% of his three-pointers. He's borderline automatic from three-land. Meanwhile, KD Johnson is averaging over a dozen points a game himself, along with a couple of rebounds. Now, when it comes to defensive play, the Tigers are currently in the top 20 in defensive field goal percentage as well. Auburn's limiting their competition to just 38% shooting from the field. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Auburn's last 2 straight got over the line, 60% to the over in their last 10. Meanwhile, Alabama went 80% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Auburn plus 9 in the over 156. Next contest, it is going to be Oklahoma State versus West Virginia, 9 o'clock East. The West Virginia Mountaineers are minus 3 with a total at 134. Now, the Mountaineers did fail to cover in their last 2 straight, and they've also lost 6 out of their last 10 meetings against the Cowboys. So if you're into historical trends, you may want to lean toward Oklahoma State. But before you go ahead and do that, I just have to remind you that the Mountaineers are a perfect 9-0 straight up in Morgantown this year, and they're limiting their competition to just 60 points a game on their home court. Now, when it comes to the scoring, Taz Sherman is averaging over 20 points a game, along with 3 rebounds and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Sean McNeil's drilling 42% of his 3 balls himself, 14 points a night for the guard. Now, they're taking on an Oklahoma State team who's had a tough time covering the point spread here recently. The Cowboys are just 1-6 against the spread in their last 7, and they're allowing a bunch of points per contest away from home. Meanwhile, offensively, the Cowboys have been little threat shooting the deep ball. They're making only 29% of their three-pointers this year. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Oklahoma State went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings, 6-4 to the over in their last 10 meetings with West Virginia. Meanwhile, the Mountaineers on the other side of things, they saw their last 3 straight get over the posted number themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward West Virginia -3 in the over 134. All right, next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Providence versus Creighton. That's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. The Creighton Blue Jays are -4.5 with the total at 134. Creighton's gotten the W in 6 out of their last 9 ball games. And they're also playing some pretty good basketball at home. Creighton's allowing just 64 points per contest on their home court, and they're limiting their opponents to just 38% shooting from the field there. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Ryan Hawkins is averaging over 13 points a night, along with 7 rebounds. Meanwhile, the big man, 7'1" Ryan Kalkbrenner, he's scoring a dozen points a game himself, and he's averaging nearly 3 blocks a game defensively. Now, the Blue Jays are amongst the better teams in the Big East in offensive rebounding. They're taking on a Providence team who struggles getting defensive boards on the road. And I'll tell you what, as good as they've been this season, when it comes to head-to-head meetings, the Friars lost 6 out of their last 10 ball games against this Creighton squad. So if you're into historical trends, especially with these conference games, sometimes those particular trends, they do matter. Now, the Friars are scoring only 61 points a game when traveling this year, and they're making just 38% of their field goals in that very same category. And when it comes to the total in this one, Providence went 6-2 to the under in their last 8 ball games. Meanwhile, Creighton went 7-2 to the under in their last 9 themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Creighton -4.5. in the under 134. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be New Mexico versus UNLV, and that's going to be an 11 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Now, the UNLV Runnin' Rebels, they are -6 with the total at 149.5. But despite being favored by a couple of buckets here, the Rebels did fail to cover in 5 out of their last 8 ball games, and they went just 36% against the spread on their home court this year. Now, the Rebels are shooting just 30% from beyond the arc at the Thomas and Mack Center, really doing a poor job making their three-pointers at home. They're taking on a New Mexico team who successfully covered the point spread in their last 2 straight themselves, and they also went 6-2 against the spread in their last 8. So certainly a team who's cashing tickets here recently. Now, the Lobos have been one of the more prolific scoring teams in the Mountain West this season. They're averaging nearly 80 points a game, and they're led by Jamal Mashburn Jr., who's scoring almost 20 points a night. And when it comes to shooting the 3-ball, well, not many do it better than Javonte Johnson. He's drilling 52% of his three-pointers this season. He's averaging just about double-digit points a game. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of New Mexico's last 8 got over the line. The Lobos are also 64% to the over for the entire season. Meanwhile, the Rebels went 6-3 to the over in their last 9 themselves. Plenty of overs to go around here. I'm going to lean toward New Mexico +6. And the over 149.5. What the heck was that? And with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 6-3 with a push in our last 10 board member tier package picks. I like USC minus 6.5 under 139. Penn State minus 2.5 over 132. DePaul plus 6.5 under 146. Vanderbilt Vanderbilt plus 8.5 under 145. Pitt Panthers plus 10.5 over 140. St. Louis Billikens plus 3 over 140.5. Baylor Bears minus 12 under 135 and a hook. Iowa State plus 12.5 over 140. Florida State Seminoles minus 6.5 over 148. Texas A&M minus 4.5 over 140. Let's try that again. Texas A&M minus 4.5 over 136. Oklahoma Sooners plus 6.5 under 128. Auburn plus 9 over 156. West Virginia Mountaineers minus 3 over 134. Creighton minus 4.5 under 134. New Mexico Lobos plus 6 over 149.5. And as far as all the other games go across this great nation, I like Towson minus 2.5 over 145. Tennessee Volunteers minus 15 under 142. Akron Zips minus 8 over 141.5. Ohio Bobcats minus 8 over 151 and a hook. Western Michigan Broncos plus 14 over 154.5. Bellarmine minus 11.5 over 149. Eastern Michigan Eagles minus 9 over 154. Drexel minus 1.5 over 140. North Alabama plus 5 over 151.5. VCU, that's Virginia Commonwealth, minus 17 under 131 and a hook. Lipscomb plus 9 over 142.5. Liberty minus 14.5 under 139. James Madison, JMU minus 6 under 139.5. Kent State that's the Kent State Golden Flashes minus 15.5 under 131. LaSalle plus 9.5 over 141. Jacksonville minus 4 under 123. Miami, Ohio minus 1 over 151.5. Davidson minus 12.5 over 153. Stephen F. Austin minus 13.5 over 154. Northern Iowa, UNI minus 10 over 152. Nebraska plus 13 over 151.5. Loyola Chicago minus 15.5 under 139. With my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean toward Fresno State minus 14 and the under 128. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on brockpage.com, you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of January. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, gotta thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.